Hello everyone. United States Senator Ben Cardin has served for more than 20 years in the United States Congress. He's become national leader on healthcare, retirement security, homeland security, the environment, and the economy. Elected to the U.S. Senate in 2006, he currently serves on the Foreign Relations, Finance, Budget, Environment, and Public Works and Small Business and Entrepreneurship committees. He also serves as co-chairman of the Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe. During the current sessions of Congress, he reintroduced the Espionage Statutes Modernization Act and the Classified Information Procedures Reform and Improvement Act, bills that both contain important reforms that would update critical national security laws and enable the government to properly prosecute present-day terrorism, espionage, and narcotics-related cases. While a member of the House of Representatives, he voted against the authorization of military force in Iraq in the 2002 build-up to Operation Iraqi Liberation. Please join me in welcoming Senator Benjamin Cardin.
Patrick, thank you very much. What Patrick didn't tell you is that he helped in my office, and I thank him for that, and I thank him for his very kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's always great to be at St. John's. I spent 20 years of my life in the Maryland General Assembly as your neighbor, and very much appreciated your presence and your challenges to us. It was nice to have a little space that we could go to for a little bit of a breather when we were debating in the General Assembly. So it's good to be back here. It's nice to be with people who care about our future and are trying to figure out ways that we can do things better in this country. I was listening a little bit to the exchange, and it's a difficult assignment. I'm standing between you and a break. I walked in the way where it looks like you got some food there. So I'm going to try to add a little bit to the discussion, then open it up for your questions and try to keep this forum moving. It's a very informative panels that you've had. Let me first acknowledge that tomorrow is the 10th anniversary, as everyone knows, of the attack against our country on September 11th, 2001. And first and foremost, our thoughts are with the victims, the over 3,000 people who were killed on that day, the victims and their families. No one was spared. Young or old, children, parents, siblings, Christians, Jews, Muslims, Americans, foreigners, over 50 countries suffered the pain, the direct pain of December the 11th. It was not an attack against one group. It was an attack against our values and our system of government. So, lessons learned, and how can we be properly prepared to move forward? Well, first, I want to just say a few words about what this was about and some false choices that people want us to make. There are those who say we have to choose between our security as a nation and our personal freedoms. That you cannot secure America unless we're all willing to give up some of our personal liberties. I think that's a false choice. And it's interesting, I am in the United States Senate. I was in the Congress when we passed the Patriot Act, which is certainly not a terribly popular law. Patriot Act was an effort to try to modernize law enforcement to meet the challenges of communications. When the wiretap laws were developed, they were developed for something probably none of you know anything about, but a landline phone. The world has changed, and we needed to modernize the tools available to law enforcement. But the Patriot Act also contained provisions that made it easier for law enforcement to be able to get subpoenas without going to a judge, to be able to get your records without a warrant, to be able to collect information in mass forms without being strategic as to what they were looking for, invading the privacy of Americans. And the authority that was given after 9/11 was abused. We know that. We know that the administrations used these powers in a somewhat indiscriminate way. That was wrong, and I hope the lessons learned is that there is a better way to do that. When we allow law enforcement just to do whatever they want to do, they get sloppy. It's not even good law enforcement. They get information that won't be useful. They don't do the law enforcement work that they should do by proper investigation. So our system of personal civil liberties, our values, not only represent what we think is the right values for the relationship between government and citizen, it also makes sense as far as keeping you safe. To me, that's one of the lessons that have been learned from 9/11 and one that we need to continue to reinforce. But there's other things that we need to take a look at. How can we be as prepared as we need to be to keep you safe? What is part of this preparation? How can we do and take steps to minimize the types of risks that we saw in 9/11? 9/11 was a singular moment in American history. It goes back to other singular moments, December 7th, 1941. When it became clear to America that we could not be isolationists, that we had to get involved in the world community, that our security was directly involved in how well we got involved with the rest of the world. And then on November 22nd, 1963, it became clear to America that our security rests with our institution and our citizens and not with any one leader. That we had to develop what was necessary to move this nation forward. And then on September 11th, 2001, it became clear to America that there was a new threat of extremists to our way of life. And we didn't understand the threat against America. Americans need to be more engaged in the international community. We need to be better prepared by understanding the world in which we live in. It's said that if you speak several languages, you're multilingual. If you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you speak 1 language, you're an American. We've got to know the world better. We've got to get engaged. And that's why, I look at this room and I see the young people that are here from the Naval Academy, from St. John's, from the other colleges that are here. You give me hope in our future, because it really does rest with your willingness to get engaged in the international community. I serve as the chairman of the subcommittee on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that deals with international development assistance. And I was listening to the last questions dealing with aid to Afghanistan. We've given more money to Afghanistan in recent years than any other country in the world. $18 billion in the last 10 years in international development assistance. And they'll probably fund our military for maybe 1 week. The amount of money we spend in international development assistance is a relatively small part of the federal budget. Most Americans think it's somewhere around 25% or 30% of the budget we spend in international development assistance. We spend less than 1% of the budget. Less than 1% of the budget in trying to help develop other countries. Now, why is that in our interest to deal with development assistance in countries around the world? It's in America's interest to have stable countries where extremists cannot develop. Now, Arab Spring was an interesting lesson, I think, for all of us. The people of the Middle East that rose up in Tunisia and Egypt and Libya rejected extremists. They rejected that thought. But in order for a country to be able to be stable, it needs to embrace 2 basic principles. 1, respect for its citizens. It's interesting that it's not just the 10th anniversary of the 9/11, it's the 224th anniversary of our Constitution. Our Constitution has served us well over the years. First with the Bill of Rights. What an idea 224 years ago. That a country could be stable and yet let its citizens have freedom of speech and criticize their government. It was a novel idea for its time. That you would develop a government where you would let people actually criticize what you do. It was the right thing to do. And it stood the test of time. Basic rights that are embedded in our Constitution. We went through a civil war. Our nation was not perfect. The Constitution survived and kept us together. We're now under an attack that we don't exactly understand, and our Constitution will serve us well. And it's a model for other countries. The people who are living in oppressed lands want basic freedom. Yes, they do. They want the right to choose their leaders. They want the right to be able to express their views. They want basic freedom, but they want something else. They want economic opportunity. For those who think that Arab Spring was just about people wanting to elect their leaders, you're wrong. It was about people who wanted a future for their families, wanted a country that could sustain their economic needs. That's why America's development assistance internationally is so critically important, to help countries to become stable economic entities where people have confidence in their future. Many of these countries have wealth. The wealth hasn't been used for its people. We call it in some cases the mineral curse, because the dictators have used the wealth to fund their corruption and not to help their people grow their economy. The United States can play a very fundamental role in helping these countries develop the basic freedom that the people demand and the economic future that they need for their families. International development assistance plays a very important role, but it can't just be giving money to other countries and say, gee, I know you appreciate it, we're wealthy America, take part of our money. We need to make sure that money is accountable. We got to fight corruption. We need transparency. I'm proud of the fact that we led an effort in this past Congress under the Dodd-Frank bill that now requires the mineral companies, the oil companies, the gas companies to list the contracts they have with other countries, so the people of Africa will know where their money for their mineral wealth is going. It should be going to them, not to corrupt leaders. Shouldn't be financing corruption.